Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this 12th, Tuesday the 12th of December 2023. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Let's see what the first thing we want to talk about here is. Well, the Houthis are at it again. The Yemen rebels, the Houthis, have hit a Norwegian tanker with a missile. I'm going to tell you about the Houthis. They don't give up, for one thing. But I think they're working with pretty antiquated weapon systems. These missiles that they're using are I've said it before, I think that the missiles that they're using are more or less just, I don't think they got sophisticated guidance systems, and they're probably not packed with that much explosives either. But they got a hit. They have hit a Norwegian tanker with at least one missile, and they caused a fire. It says the MT Sterinda was delivering oil to Israel, but the ship's owner said it was headed to Italy with feedstock for biofuel. And so I guess what they've done is they hit it, they lit a little fire on board the ship or whatever. I don't think they really damaged the ship that much. It says the MT Sterinda was attacked at the Bab el Mandeb Strait at the entrance to the Red Sea. The missile caused a fire on board the ship, but it was extinguished, and the ship was able to make its way onto a safe port. But if they continue with this, they're probably going to get lucky sooner or later and sink one of these big cargo ships or something if they continue with this. They're showing determination and everything, Now here, the Philippines accuses China. Now this is down in the South China Sea, evidently, and there's contested areas over the South China Sea. And they're having a water cannon fight. The Chinese Navy's blasting them with water cannons. There's a picture of the water cannon fight. I have to laugh about that. Well, it's better than shooting each other with real cannons, I guess, which... Oh, my. It says China blasts the Philippines boat with a water cannon, the military says. Chinese Coast Guard ship blasted a Philippines Navy-operated supply boat with water cannon and harassed a vessel in the contested South China Sea for the second day in a row on Sunday, the head of the Philippines military said. Well, actually, it's not a laughing matter. This could escalate, it could. Probably won't, but it could. So it's not really a laughing matter. It was described as pure aggression. That's what it was described as, written right here. It's pure aggression. It says the ships cut our path. This is the Philippines talking. The Chinese Coast Guard and militia ships cut our path, and they water cannoned us, and then they bumped us. He said it's angering. Okay. Now, there's a big summit going on right now. COP28. UN climate talks. It says here from BBC News that the talks are in jeopardy after a fossil fuels backlash. UN climate talks in Dubai could be in jeopardy after some nations reacted furiously to a draft deal on fossil fuels that they call weak. The draft removes language included in the previous text suggesting that fossil fuels could be phased out. In 198 countries at the summit, they must agree or there is no deal. It says there's a new amended version of the text that's expected to be issued on Tuesday so that negotiations can continue. And so it says a representative for the European Union called the draft unacceptable and said the bloc would walk away. We can't accept the text, they said Minister Eamon Ryan, a negotiator for the EU and Ireland's environmental minister, but he added that the collapse of the talks is not the outcome the world needs. So we got that going on. Now, in the Israel war, Israel is launching deadly West Bank raids and pounds Gaza ahead of a United Nations vote. So what is this United Nations vote? Now you remember the United Nations were voting to have a ceasefire, and the American delegation, I guess, said they vetoed it. But now it's going ahead again, and let's take a look here real quick at Reuters. Story comes from Reuters. United Nations General Assembly is set to demand a Gaza ceasefire. It says United Nations, December 12th, the UN General Assembly appeared set to demand on Tuesday an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in the 2-month-long conflict between Israel and Hamas after the United States, I should say, vetoed such a move in the Security Council. It says no country has veto power in the 193-member General Assembly, which is due to vote on a draft resolution that mirrors the language of the one that was blocked by the United States in the 15-member Security Council last week. So, evidently, when the whole assembly of the United Nations meets together, the whole 193-member General Assembly, evidently, it's a bigger move, much bigger move. And so Israel is launching this deadly West Bank raids just ahead of this UN vote, it says. And so it says Israeli forces have carried out deadly raids on the occupied West Bank while shelling and bombing in many areas of the Gaza Strip in advance of a United Nations General Assembly meeting to discuss an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. So I just don't know how that's going to go. I mean, if they were to, the United Nations were to demand a ceasefire, how would Israel respond to that? I just don't know what that would be or what it would mean. Now, Ukraine says that it suspects Russia, and this is from the Moscow Times. It says Ukraine says that it suspects Russia is behind a massive hacking attack, I guess, going on in Ukraine. It says Ukraine pointed fingers at Russia's Secret Service over a massive hacker attack on Tuesday that disrupted services for the country's main phone operator. It says Ukraine's SBU Security Services says it has opened a criminal investigation and sent agents to the company's office. It says special services of the Russian Federation may be behind this hacker attack. You notice how in the language here it says the special services of the Russian Federation may be behind the hacker attack? This is key with these hacker attacks and stuff. It's very difficult to prove. Like you can say, hey, you know what? How do you actually, if there's no real evidence, like that he did it, or whatever country did it, like they're saying Russia did it, but I'm now taking this one step further and say there's a gigantic hacking attack inside the United States or something. It might be very hard to prove what country of origin caused it. You see what I mean? And that's what's happening here with Ukraine. They're trying to say, hey, Russia, they're pointing the finger at Russia's Secret Service. Ukraine is pointing the finger at Russia's Secret Service, it says here. But, and they've opened a criminal investigation. But you notice the wording here? And quote unquote, the special services of the Russian Federation may be behind the hacker attack. And you notice they use the word may be behind the hacker attack. And this could be the same case if we're dealing with stuff like this. Say there's some sort of a hacker attack anywhere on Earth. How do you trace it without any doubt? See, this is the thing about this. You remember the pipelines were blowing up. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline was blowing up. They've never found out who did it, and that was a biggie. They still don't know who did it. And this can be the same thing with an enormous hacker attack. I mean, they could shut down all communications in your country or whatever with a hacker attack, and nobody claims responsibility, and you might, the intelligence service from your country might pretty much know who did it or be able to guess it who did it, but maybe they can't get the evidence to pin it on them. To verify it could be difficult. And that's all I'm saying. I'm just pointing that out as a fact. In this new modern hybrid warfare that's going on around the world. And you see, this is part of it. This is part of this hybrid warfare that's going on. This massive hacking attack. So that you can't use your phones. And not just phones. You might not be able to use internet if there's a huge attack. And it could even affect infrastructure in a very negative way, you know? Okay, moving on here. A suicide bomber has attacked Pakistan. They've attacked a police station, 23 officers dead, you know? Again, see, we're talking about hybrid warfare here. It's not the warfare we used to know back in the 1940s, back during the Second World War, when everything was much more straightforward. Yeah, the Allied forces were bombing Germany and so on. It was all straightforward. Pearl Harbor was all straightforward. Everything was pretty much straightforward. Now we're in this age of the internet. We're in this age of these hybrid attacks that can come from nowhere, and it's hard to find out exactly who's behind it, even. See? So a suicide bomber here has detonated an explosive-laden vehicle at the main gate of the Pakistan police station on early Tuesday. He killed 23 officers, and they've wounded 32 others. The explosion caused part of the building to collapse in the deadly attack in northwest Pakistan, according to officials of the Associated Press. It says militants also opened fire toward the structure, leading to a shootout with security forces that lasted 3 hours before 3 attackers were gunned down. Now, see, that would give them a clue who's behind it when they recover these 3 attackers who were gunned down. It would give them a much bigger clue who's behind it. You know? But this again it fits into this category I'm talking about hybrid warfare. Which is basically no barred warfare. I mean, it's the kind of thing where they can come into a country and they can basically it's like terrorism is what it's like. This hybrid warfare can be like that. And I could see it growing into something like that. And the potential for it is growing now that this war in the Middle East is spreading, or has the possibility to spread rather rapidly. depending on if other countries were to get involved, like, say, Iran, you know. I mean, up till now, we've been kind of lucky. The fact that Iran hasn't joined into this, what could grow to be the whole Middle East. The Houthis are dangerous enough, and Hezbollah to the north of Israel is very dangerous as well. Uh, but if Iran were to get directly involved in all of this, their weapon systems are much more powerful, and they probably fit right into this hybridized warfare that I'm talking about. Would fit right into the Iranians. This is their style, is asymmetrical warfare and hybridized warfare. This is right up their alley. And the asymmetrical type warfare that they use is okay, you got your big aircraft carrier out there, right? And all of a sudden a swarm of, say, 500 of these little gunboats start to come in. Well, maybe you can take out 10 of them or 20 of them. But they're like, this is a kind of asymmetrical warfare that is like, am I using the correct term, asymmetrical warfare, for that? I mean, but it's different. It's different than what we're used to. Multiple targets simultaneously. I mean, maybe 100 targets simultaneously. Say you take out 30 on the deck of the ship, but that means 70 of them will get through. And it's all got to do with timing and speed. You know? This is one of Iran's big tactics, is using much smaller vessels rather than putting all their eggs in one basket like the way the United States does it with the big aircraft carriers. You know? And these behemoths on the ocean, China is developing, and other countries as well, probably Iran as well, is developing what they call aircraft carrier killers. And what they are is they're missiles that fly at hypersonic speeds, that fly so fast it's hard to stop them. And they're made specifically for destroying aircraft carriers. And it's a heck of a lot cheaper than an aircraft carrier. Okay, so the missile itself, I mean, it's just small and cheap compared to the price of an enormous aircraft carrier. And so if you get too close to their shores, which in this case, those missiles can fly like 1,600 kilometers, so it wouldn't be hard to get within range, well, you're putting your aircraft carrier in jeopardy, depending on how good of a defense systems you've got on board your aircraft carrier. Now, I'm not going to say that the aircraft carriers of the United States are in jeopardy. I'm just saying that you've got to have a very good air defense system on board your aircraft carrier in this day and age. It's a different world than we lived in the 1940s, when you could bring your aircraft carrier in close enough to the country in question that you could launch your aircraft off the aircraft carrier and you didn't need to refuel. You could get close enough that you could just fly in sorties or missions and then fly back to the aircraft carrier for refueling. Now they have to keep the aircraft carriers further offshore because of these weapon systems. And then sometimes, what about refueling if they got to fly a mission? I mean, the whole thing is starting to get very complicated and very sordid. Okay, moving on. We're going to take a look at the silver price today. Silver's down again, 11 cents, 22.70. Boy, this has been a bad downward trend we've been fighting ever since we made that little pump up in the price. We've went into a really negative cycle for silver, but it's a great buying opportunity if you're accumulating still. This is a good buying opportunity. $1.10 down for gold at 1980. Now, cryptocurrency, it's not doing so good today either at 41,240 for Bitcoin. But when you consider that it was down to 17,000 at its lowest not that long ago, still 41,000 still looks pretty darn good. Ethereum is at 2189. and XRP is at 61.6 cents. Now, moving on to the Dow Jones Industrial Average, we're looking at 36,523 for the Dow Jones. It's up 119 points on the day so far. And checking out crude oil's down a lot. We're back into the $60, $68.93. It's down $2.39. So, this administration can get out there right now and crow about that. They can, look at the price of oil, look, the price of the pumps is going down, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, it could be a very temporary thing. But it will translate to the price at the pump to a certain degree. When crude oil starts to go down this low, you're going to see a drop at the price at the pump. Now, bonds and rates today. We're looking at falling yields. I'm going to tell you guys, I'm just going to go back and talk about oil just for a second. This could be the canary, and the reason, even with the tensions in the Middle East, we see this oil price dropping like a stone, could be a signal of an immense recession that we're entering into right now. Now, I'm not going to call it a recession. It's actually a depression. I think we're on the front edge of it right now. And I think it's just beginning. And I think over the next few months, probably including the first quarter of 2024, we could really start to manifest itself and see it. And I think it's desperately powerful. I think it has as much energy behind it as the Great Depression of the and this oil price dropping could be a signal that it's beginning. Because when the system basically, the energy of that, the deflationary energy of that can start to shut down the system ahead of it, and they don't need so much oil. Let's take a look at bonds here, and we're seeing falling yields today. We're looking at a 10-year that's fell 2.7 basis points to 4.21, and a 30-year is at 4.31, and it's down 1.1 basis points. And taking a look at the dollar index today, and we're back down into the 103s. 103.89. And with a few dipsy doodles in there, we're moving along sideways today on the dollar. Thank you guys for listening to my show. You guys have a great afternoon, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.